Hello, and welcome back to the Mead Gaming's Hobby Podcast. I am your host, Jay, and with me today I am joined by...
Just me today, John.
Yep, just John today. Thank you very much for joining me on a...
Pleasure, as always.
Not quite normal day of recording.
Everything's a bit different today, but that's what makes it fun, you know?
Yeah, it is very different. We're also doing it during the day rather than the evening.
Which means hopefully my lighting doesn't mean I descend into oblivion partway through.
Yeah, so I quite often have to cut out bits where people are moving off to turn lights on.
I mean, I feel like it's not quite as bad as Joe, who literally just disappears into a void partway through.
Yeah, the bad thing is I don't even notice until he suddenly says, "Oh, I'm really dark, I need to go turn a light on."
Yeah, I feel like you should lean into it, just have like the ominous shadow appear around him.
We could do, but that would work so much better if he was still doing Tyranids.
It wouldn't. Yeah, like it's the shadow on the wall approaching.
Yeah, that would be so thematic, but sadly
so
not.
thematic.
So, on to today. So, in this episode, we bring a brand new series, Forging the Narrative. Over the next few episodes, I'll be sitting down one-on-one with members of the MHG team to explore the lore and the story behind each of their Legions Imperialis armies. We'll be diving deep into homeworlds, doctrines, unique characters, and narrative themes. Everything that brings an army to life. And where better to begin than the very first Legion, backed by a noble knight household and a towering Titan Legion. Today, John takes us into the shadows of the Dark Angels. So, following on from last week's heresy and hearsay discussions and its effect on legions, we are now going to be looking, as we said, deeply into the narratives of our own factions and what we're going to be doing, irrespective of what comes in the near future. Fingers crossed. But before we go on to any of that, we do have our regularly scheduled segment of the Tankard Talk. So, let's head over there and we'll see you in just a moment.
See you over there.
And welcome back. So,
Welcome.
here we are in the display camera mode,
Yes.
which is looking a little bit bare with just the two of us, but I'm sure we'll be able to fill the void.
Yeah. We've got all that space above us, which we can fill with all of the things we want to show off.
Exactly. Speaking of which, let's begin. What is this?
This is... So those that remember, on a previous episode, I have shown off this model before. This is from the Maker's Cult. It's a series that they're doing, or a new faction that they're starting there called the Daughters of War. I just think they're a really cool model, and they're really nice to just put different schemes on. So I had some, I was sat, doing some stuff the other day, and I was like, I wonder how they look in Dark Angels colours. And the answer is they look really good. And I've already come up with like a little bit of a name for if I was going to do this as a faction. The Daughters of Caliban is just suitable. The other, and then you can have your character, which is like the lioness, and it just fits.
It does work, and it is really well put together here as well.
They look really good in Dark Angels colours.
They do,
because they've got that. They've got more of like a knight vibe than the kind of than traditional sisters have. So they take to like different colour schemes far more nicely than standard sisters.
This is a lot less ostentatious. It's got a lot less filigree and inlays in the armour plates and stuff like that, which does lend itself to being adapted better.
And I mean, there's a vibe to it of like, it's got kind of Space Marine in the sense of there's a lot more kind of smooth panels. As I said, there's a lot less filigree, there's a lot less trim, but it is still its own thing. I think the biggest selling point for me for all of these is that helmet design.
Yeah, it's very
the kind of like. Yeah, go on, sorry.
It's the very classical sort of 14th century knight.
Like just where it comes together in like almost like an axe head was the version that I've seen. And I'm like, yes, I just want to chuck some different paints on it and see how it looks. And paint him up in Dark Angels colours means I've got another excuse to make bolter bits in red.
Yeah, I did clock the bolt a bit, but I've got. I'm not gonna lie. Ooh, hang on. The bit that sells me on it is that.
The Foresword.
The Gauntlet Blade. I just something about it.
The Gauntlet Blade is. I love it, and also I did it a little bit differently this time with the kind of like the power pack glowing on the arm as well. Which the way of doing that actually is surprisingly fast now. It's basically the blade is painted up using Grey Knight steel, and then has the athematic contrast paint just basically put over it, but pulling towards the end, but where like the power node is, so it looks like it's coming off from there.
Do you do like a big dollop towards the base of the blade and pull down, or do you put the dollop at the tip of the blade and pull down?
It's from I go from the base of the blade and pull up and away, and that seems to wick it in just the right way. Sometimes you might end up with a little bit at the very end, in which case then I just kind of like just use the brush and just pull that away, or use like a dry brush to just get rid of that last little bit if there is too much on the end. Or I'll like draw it back down towards, I kind of like go up and then come back down the other way to pull it back down towards the base. Okay. I did do on the last one. I actually went in before I did it and did some white, like lightning on it as well, so it looked like it was arcing off. But I was doing this one literally in an evening. I was sat with a couple of paints, and I could only really manage to take one model with me with the place we were going. But I was sat there, I had the paints in front of me, and I was like, I wonder how this will look. We just kind of threw it together.
It's come out wonderfully. It has to be said.
And it proves that I can do the Dark Angels scheme on a bigger scale. Not that I'm planning on doing it on a bigger scale, but the principle of the Legion scale works small and goes big. The cloak as well. That was Xandri Dust as like a base, and then I did Wraithbone with a dry brush. But rather than like dry brushing normally, I just stippled it all over and like focused, like going kind of like down on where the folds would be, so it would stand out nicely. And then the whole thing got a Agrax Earthshade wash. Okay. So it's this nice kind of like dirty cream vibe.
Does look like you've done a good job, and you've managed to avoid doing what we all do when we first start out doing any kind of washing. You've managed to avoid the pooling at the base of the cape. Because the amount of times that's happened.
I intentionally tried to, if you can see on the shoulder, I tried to intentionally get a bit more there, just so there was like a kind of a real definition between like highs and lows. The worst one for me though is less on the cream cloaks, more on red. I find that I end up staining the red ones way more than regularly. Okay.
I suppose it's easier to spot it on the cream, maybe. My guess.
Don't know. I always find that I end up with red cloaks that look not like cloth. I know that like making things look like cloth is really ridiculously hard, but I always feel like they end up looking not quite right. So it's kind of been my mission to try and figure out how to do red properly.
Well, let me know how you do it, because I just cheat all the time.
The way that I am tempted to do it is basically do cream and then do a red contrast over it. That's going to be my next one to try out.
That's generally how I do a lot of... I do most of my stuff that way, but that's how I approach cloaks. Some of my most recent 28mm models, the Alpha Legion, the sergeants all have leather capes on one shoulder, and that's how that was done. That was a slap chop, dry brushing, and then just the brown straight over the top.
Was it the snakebite leather by chance?
No, I actually used... it was one of the proper brown colours, Garax Sewer or something like that.
Yeah, I know the one, yeah.
Somewhere a bit darker.
I was going to say, that snakebite leather one is such a good one for leather.
It's amazing, but it's a little bit too yellow toned for what I wanted for the Alpha Legion.
Yeah, that's fair. You want something that kind of like that darker vibe. No, I very much get that one.
But yeah, it does work for other stuff, which I think might be coming up very soon. There we are.
It was almost as if I knew where it was going.
It's like we finally learned how to segue.
It's a boy.
It's a boy.
It's a boy.
It's one of the boys.
One of the Commando boys.
Such a cool
yes, this is my first finished Commando. Would you care for? You'll be pleased. So the grenades on the shoulder, or like the on the chest. Do you know why they're yellow?
Because they're wrapped in leather. Because
yellow's the flashiest color, so therefore it explodes more.
They're flashbangs.
They're flashbangs.
Orcs got confused what flashbangs were.
It just makes a really big explosion. That's their equivalent of a flashbang.
That's cool. I like that.
The other thing that I am, it's the first time I've actually kind of tried to do it properly without just like cheating with something like contrast paint, is the goggles. So they're blue, and then I went through with gradually lighter highlighter blue to try and create that like effect of like lens flare on the top of it. I don't know whether I'm going to do it for the rest, but I was really pleased with how the one came out.
That's quite really. The thing I want to point out though is that the skin on the hand with the axe. That looks like you've spent hours and hours highlighting that up, and I know you haven't.
The base coat of this was so all black, Xandri dust as the first layer, and then I think it was Wraith bone, or might have been Ushabti bone. It was like a lighter kind of bone colour. So they were very much in the like almost like sandy colours, because I wanted to kind of keep that like warmth coming through. And then the contrast paint that was, and then it was literally just a contrast paint over the top of it. Specifically, actually, it was Army Painter's one. It was Army Painter's speed paint, which was, just check what it says, Gilly Dew.
Okay.
They do have an orc skin one. I have now got the orc skin one, although the orc skin one is very, very green.
I mean, I think I think orcs look better when they've all got different skin tones anyway. So
yeah, 100%,
right,
100%.
It does help to break up the horde look a little bit. So I've seen some people who've done it, and they're like every single green skin. I mean, they're not totally different shades, obviously, but you have a few different colours mixed into every unit. It just breaks it up, makes it look more like what they're supposed to be, which is a rabble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this really just highlights, pun intended, how effective contrasting can be with the right techniques, because that looks like you've spent way longer on it than you have.
Yeah, I will fully admit I have not. So I did not spend that long on this. The only bits that actually needed what I would say is traditional paint were the metallics.
Yep.
So the gun, the axe, the rebreather on the mask, the kind of the bit around the goggles. Those were done traditionally. You know, there was paint on them, but that was literally a case of I did one coat of gunmetal or plate metal. I can't remember which one it was. I've got some nice Army Painter metallics, and then it was just rattling grime over the whole thing. And then that just came out.
I love rattling grime.
so good on it.
Yeah.
I also did rattling grime. So his little mugs hanging off the back. You can see.
Yeah.
You can see there. Those little mugs were just again like just in silver and then in rattling grime. Unintentionally ended up with the little stick grenade on his back, looking in some lights like it's like that handle's made of wood. That wasn't intentional, but it's ended up that way, and I'm not complaining.
No, it looks awesome.
I do now. Go on.
No, sorry, you carry on. I'll ask my question at the end.
After I sent this picture and staring at this one right now, can you see the detail that I missed on that previous picture? After I sent the picture, it has bugged me. It's now sat there on my to-do next, just so that I can say I've done it, because I thought I'd done it, but I've missed.
Potentially, I could see two.
Oh no! I've only spotted one. Right, go on.
So the one that you probably argue doesn't need doing, but you could argue it needs doing, is there's a little bit of rope tying the bag together on the backpack. That doesn't look like that's a separate colour, which it doesn't necessarily need to be, but that's one thing you could nitpick. But the other one is obviously right next to it, which is the vials strapped on the back.
Well,
vials or bullets or whatever they're supposed to be.
I was going to say, I assume they're meant to be bullets, so I like just staring at it now, just staring back at me, being like, I need to wax some more paint on that to get that looking like actual bullets on his back. At least in silver. I can just get some silver on them; they'll be fine. But
yes, no. Yeah. No, other than that, it looks pretty spot on to me.
And there's my basing mix that is there. A combination of basically just a bunch of different sands and some big rocks. Although, for reference, if I grab it back up, just because under the desk, this is how much of it I have, so I think I'm safe for a while. Trying to get it on screen. Yeah, I think I'm all right for a little bit.
Yeah, you got plenty.
The large bit of black is just the scoop I use for getting it out if I need more.
Yes, I've got a basing bits tub that's about twice that size. That's almost full, and I've based my entire Legions army with it, and it's still barely touched it.
I do have a separate grit for Legions, because obviously those rocks would be big at Legion scale.
Funnily enough, though, the stuff I've got, I use it for both 28mm and 8mm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because some of it is so fine. It's like nothing. It's like dust. The bigger rocks just look like big bits of masonry, so I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah. But maybe I'll chuck a couple of rocks in.
You have to cherry pick it a little bit. So like on the infantry, I try to avoid the big stuff. But if it's on vehicles and Titans, it really doesn't matter.
You know what? Yeah, that's fair. So maybe I'll siphon off some rocks, get a little sieve, and grab some rocks out of my big thing.
It can work. That's what I'm going to do. My big question is though, do you think I'd enjoy painting that?
Do I think you would enjoy paint? Honestly, I reckon you would actually. It wouldn't feel quite so bad because you use lots of different contrasts already, and you've got like basically the entire range of contrasts. And it was just done in contrast, so that made it, relatively speaking, quick to do. I mean, that was maybe an evening, just sat bashing that one out. I think Orcs is definitely one where if you're going to be doing them, you almost want to go like, I'm only going to paint this one model. And just accept the fact that, okay, yes, they're a Horde army, but I think they benefit from not being batch painted. So you can be like, okay, what am I going to do with this one? Get that one done, and then move on to next. And you can kind of treat each one as their own individual little guy. Weirdly, compared to like Space Marines, where obviously they are more elite, but they want to feel more unified. Whereas like you almost want every orc to be like his own little orc.
Okay.
Don't know whether I'm selling you or not on the idea of trying to paint them. I had great fun.
I don't know. As you know, the only thing that puts me on for orcs is the painting, because obviously, as we discussed in a previous episode, orcs are probably the perfect faction for me for kit bashing and having fun with.
I realise that they are the perfect faction for you from a kit bashing perspective. I don't know whether they're necessarily. I mean, you can play obviously every army whichever way you want to play them, but I don't know whether they're the perfect faction for you rules wise.
Why is that?
Just because they're not that tricksy.
Yeah,
you can play them tricksy.
I was gonna say, but I quite like turning non-tricksy factions tricksy.
So you'd go like commandos heavy. Have your commandos boss Snickrot.
But you also got to remember, my Legions armies very much massed infantry and big stompy walkers.
You know what else you could take, which I don't think are actually that bad as well.
What's that?
You could take death copters.
Oh yeah.
You could take little flyers. You could have so many flyers.
Yeah. Orcs have everything I want in the faction, basically.
Orcs do have everything. I mean, they're just good fun. They're just good fun. Yeah. At some point, they're going to be on other hobby topics that I've been doing, which don't lead to pictures in quite the same way. I played a game of 4th edition.
Oh yes, back to my old days. That is.
Yeah, Jimmy. Friendship with 10th edition has ended. 4th edition is new best friend. I started my first game at 6:30. Now, bear in mind, okay, it was just a we're going to run at each other and try and kill each other kind of game. But for a very first game of 1,000 points, we started at 6:30. I was finished and home by 8:30.
Wow, that's quick.
Because it just worked. I didn't have to go. Do I want to use this stratagem right now, or do I want? Or do I need to wait for you to pick whether you're going to use your stratagem or not right now? Or we've got to make sure we go through all the different phases and take each step and be like, oh, you've got a command phase, right? You do something in your command phase, I do something in my command phase, you do something in my command phase as well. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No, we just did things, and it was really good fun.
Did you have any tanks?
I did.
So you got the joy of tank facing and armor values? I
got the joy of tank facing and armor values. Hilarious tank facing and armor values, okay? So my particular list was I had a Rhino, which was full of a Crusader squad with a couple of Neophytes, a couple of Initiates, Emperor's Champion, and they had a flamethrower. They had a flamer in there as well. And then there was a shooty squad, which was more just regular guys with bolters and a missile launcher and a plasma gun. And then I also had a squad of Terminators with an assault cannon and a Dreadnought with a assault cannon as well. Against my mate, who basically had brought a bunch of Eldar Aspect Warriors. They had a squad of Dire Avengers, a squad of Banshees, a squad of Striking Scorpions, a Ranger, a Farseer, and a Autarch. Mm-hmm. My Dreadnought stomps around the corner. Oh, sorry, and also a Wave Serpent to transport his Dire Avengers in.
Right.
So my Dreadnought stomps around the corner, spools up the assault cannon, fires. I can't do any damage to Wave Serpent on the front because the armor is too strong. However, then proceeds to, after shooting ineffectively, just walk up and just punch it out the sky. Just walk up, and I was like, what do I need to roll? We're it's armor value 12, it's strength 10, roll more than roll 2 or more. So, immediately got the penetrating hit, rolled on the table of what happens when the vehicle goes down. What did I roll?
Either wreck or explosion, 6. But, did it go
boom?
A
6. It exploded. It went boom. Obviously, all the Dire Avengers fell out. The Autarch was in there. They lost some Dire Avengers. This Autarch splits off from the squad, runs around the corner, lines up on the side of my Dreadnought, pulls the melter gun, and just blows a hole in the side of the Dreadnought. Immediately, it then explodes as well.
Wow. That's impressive.
There was a lot of the vehicle got to where it needed to go, and then just exploded.
I miss 4th edition.
Jamie, I will happily. I am 4th edition is now best edition.
The old days just had things that it just flowed, and it was very thematic.
I was building my list. I got to the point. I was like, oh, I'm 2 points over. I'll take off this one piece of equipment, and now my list is perfect. Rather than, oh god, I'm 5 points over, but I can only remove this unit, which is 65 points, and now I can't do anything with these remaining points. I was like, I can just tailor it to be exactly where I need it to be, and it's done.
Yeah, the granularity in list design. And I know you love this part because you've mentioned it on before, probably on a group chat or something. But Build-A-Bear characters.
Oh my god,
so good. The Chaos Lord Build-A-Bear kit was so cool.
I have looked at Chaos's options. I can go, within reason. There's obviously a huge list of things that you can do for being I want to have my captain, then he's going to be like a guy in like Terminator armor or regular armor, but I can be like, I want him to have this gun or this gun or this gun, or like, yeah, so many things. I did see as well that I could do a combo, which I've always wanted to try out, which is I'm going to take a power weapon and a power fist. It's like, you can do that. You don't get the benefit of both, but you can be like, I'm going to hit you at this point with the power weapon, or I'm going to pull out the power fist.
Yeah. There were just things you could do, because it basically was just a free rein to say, convert what you want and play it how you want to play it.
Yeah, 100%. And it still works perfectly good with like the new models.
Yeah, you do have to fiddle with it a little bit, I would imagine.
I mean, the beauty is just like, we're not playing. It's not played from a competitive perspective. We're playing to have fun, which is how it should be.
It is how it should be, and that's how we play.
And that's how we play. Yeah. We do not come from any competitive aspect.
Avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Well, I will probably want to come back to the topic of orcs at some point, but we'll probably won't do that here or on recording. That's probably a long conversation. But I believe there is something else that we've got to have a look at from you, John.
Oh, yes.
Something very interesting. Also, I might also suggest is at the wrong scale, but hey-ho, we press on. What is this behemoth?
It's an impulsor, right?
I mean, it's definitely an impulsor chassis.
It's an impulsor chassis.
But those look like wheels.
They you know what? Funnily enough, they are indeed wheels. They are very much wheels. I can summarize this down to in the simplest form, the Warhammer podcast described the impulsor as looking like a pickup truck. I then saw somebody had made the impulsor a pickup truck, and I needed it in my life. The difference being, this thing is huge. It is absolutely ridiculous. Like, if this was a vehicle in real life, the wheels are like 6 foot.
Like
which makes sense in terms of how it's going to transport, Marines around. But yeah.
I mean, one thing, this puts it in for me, right? I should have got another image up, because that looks exactly like a blown up Sagittar from the Legions of Votan.
You know what?
Because that door, even the angle and the shape is almost identical.
You know, I hadn't put that together, but yes, I did. I was like, the base model. It is a beautiful base model, but I was like, it's not quite Warhammer, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I've seen it pre-Gubbins, to use an orc phrase, but that now looks very much like it belongs to a very specific army.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My big hammer army.
Your big hammer army.
I was like, what does it need? It needs chains, it needs purity seals, and just because they're the most ridiculous thing, the braziers on the back, I think, are my favourite part of it. Yeah. Just the idea of this thing trundling around with the flaming braziers just above where people are meant to sit. The back, the little door that does hinge.
Oh,
it does hinge. It hinges using magnets, interestingly. So by the original design, the person designed it so that you put magnets basically on either side, so it keeps it held, but then it just like swings if you want it to swing open.
I don't know whether you did this on purpose, but you know the little tassel bits flinging off the bottom. I'm just thinking, is that meant to be a reference to the whole truck nuts thing that the Americans love?
That wasn't the intention, actually. I kind of wanted to see if I could get one that or have like little banner and it's like just crusading instead of just married. It's just crusading. But yes, also the truck. Although I will say, I don't know whether those are going to stay there because they have broken twice now.
Oh dear.
To much swearing. Just from a perspective of, obviously, so this one is a 3D printed proxy for the purposes of the impulsor. Please say, Jemmy, it is entirely magnetized, as it should be.
Yes.
So that it can do everything. With one exception is I haven't magnetized the guy who's in the top thing because you're always you can only ever take it with a melter.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always going to have the multi-melter on top. So I was like, he can just chuck him on there, just be done. But everything else is designed to be hot swap. This was basically my kind of big attempt at a new type of resin. Mm-hmm. This is brief resin chat here for those that are interested. So this was the JO ABS-like water washable resin.
Mm-hmm.
It's good from the perspective of it's water washable.
Mm-hmm.
By comparison to what we have been using, which was the Sunlu ABS-like, I think I'm going to go back to the Sunlu. Things like that chain I said on the back, the Sunlu one would bend, that one snapped.
Yeah, I mentioned it to you when you first brought up tried the water washable, and I did say to my knowledge the water washables tend to be more brittle.
It's a real shame because conceptually it's great.
It's a great concept because obviously then you don't have to fuck around with ISO to clean all your parts. But if you want parts that are going to last, you're going to have to suck it up, really.
It also, everything, I don't know how else to describe it, but it feels like it's just lost a little bit of that definition. I just feel like things
aren't crisp.
Yeah, it's a really small weird thing, but it's just not quite as crisp. I'm gonna use it up, but I didn't purchase a whole load.
I'd use it for chunky resin bases bits and stuff like that.
I'm probably gonna run off a load of bases, run off some other big bits and stuff like that.
If you want a tip for making ISO last longer,
yes,
I have got a tip for you, which I won't say is my idea. I saw it being used in one of Mini Wargaming's videos. They have 3 containers of ISO. Mm-hmm. One that's very dirty, one that is partly dirty, and one that is clean. And I've adopted that, and I've been doing a load of printing. My clean is still clean. You just literally... So all I do is I chuck the plate into the dirty, run it for 5 minutes, swap it into the mid, run it for 5 minutes, swap it into the clean for 5 minutes.
So in the process of getting the water washable one, I picked up another tank as well. Mm-hmm. So I do now have 2 tanks.
Yeah.
So I can at least do a 2-stage process with it.
A 2-stage will make it last longer, I think. But the third one, the clean stuff, is clean. It is totally transparent. I've been using it for weeks.
Yeah.
The other 2 have obviously gone a little bit nastier, but that initial one literally just takes off the most of the gunk, and then that second one cleans off the rest of it, really. And then it's such an amazing method.
It's just it's the not constant price of ISO, but it's the price of ISO, which is the thing that's I don't want to spend more, but. Anyway.
Well, I already had 2. I had batches of ISO that had already been dirty, so I just bought a new clean batch, and then just recycled the dirty stuff. To make this system. It just works.
It's a good system.
So,
smart.
Can recommend.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I've got a little bit from our end.
Ooh.
To show.
I wondered with everything that was happening whether you've managed to get anything.
So nothing's been painted yet. Although, as I said to you off camera, I have just primed up, ready to paint some more Night Lords.
We are currently staring at something that is entirely grey. I think you're safe.
Yeah. So I've got the last batch of Night Lords to do. Then I shall be hammering out a mountain of plastic that I've had waiting for me to paint for my own armies. But in the interim, we have been playing games.
Ooh.
So this is a follow-on from last time when I spoke about the mission that I had written that didn't work. And we ran it again, this time with some modifications to the way that the mission works. And I have to say, it now works very well.
Excellent.
It is now winnable for both sides.
Okay, so what did you change about it?
So it's a very simple change. All I really did was instead of having the defender constantly score points for holding the relic, which they can cart around the board, and the attacker only gaining points if they not only take it but then escape with it, we simply changed it to it's an end game objective. So whoever is holding it at the end of the game will score 25 points.
Okay, yeah,
Nice and simple.
that seems.
The difference is, though, or I say the thing that I kept the same was that both players can still pick up the objective and move it around, mount it in vehicles to transport it and stuff like that. So you can still run around with it and kite your opponent a little bit. It still works quite well.
Play keep away with it.
Yeah.
I do briefly enjoy the idea, because obviously you get points at the end. Like, I'm not saying any of us would do this, by the way, but just like my immediate brain goes to, so I pick it up, I chuck it into like a Thunderhawk or something like that. I fly off the board, and then just before the end of the game, I fly back on and be like, it's on the board now, it's fine.
Yes, no, it would have to. I probably will have to actually write a caveat in there to say that you can't put it on a flyer transport and then exit the board.
Again, I feel like that is one that is in the grand scheme of, briefly going back, the how you play 4th edition. You both agree on a reasonable set of rules, and you follow those rules.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be written out in, you can only do this.
Yeah. Some things I'm going to have to put in there, though, just because I know someone will moan.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, as we have said, these missions were designed for narrative play, so I'm not expecting people to cheese it.
No.
Well, actually, that's a lie. I expect people to try and cheese it, but I expect the people who are actually going to enjoy it not to.
I mean, we play from a perspective of fun first.
Yeah. And I just like the idea that you can just chuck a relic into the back of a couple of land raiders and scoot it up to the other side of the table when you've got to chase it. It's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and it encourages interesting narrative play.
It does, and that's exactly what Els was trying to do. She had them in some land raiders, had it in a land raider, and as you can see in the background there, I had a very big tool to try and stop said land raiders from just running away from me.
It's the looming size of that thing. Is that the War Master?
No, that's the Warlord. That's the one below it.
Oh wow! Okay,
the War Master's bigger.
Okay, is that were you running the Psi one, or you were just running the regular one?
It's just the regular in this game. I want to try and concentrate on making sure the mission was working this time.
That's the big guns.
But yes, no, I had a Warlord Titan, so I dropped the Warhound and one of the Wings of Fighters to upgrade to a Warlord, but the rest of the army was the exact same.
Okay.
And that was only because I hadn't used the Warlord in a while, so I thought, I want to use a big Titan.
Did the Titan do more than the last game, though?
Hell of a lot more. So this is one of those games where, obviously, in our group, I am famous for my bad rolling. This is one of those games where all the bad luck came back to haunt Ele.
Oh no! Because
I was rolling very hot by turn 3.
Oh no, that's not the good. You don't want that.
No.
The only thing that keeps you in check is your bad rolling.
Yeah. So by the end of turn 4, we decided enough was enough because she had about 3 models left on the table.
Warlord looks so good.
It is beautiful.
Sorry, just the way it just like looms over and just the mask. Like that head style.
It's not even got his armor plates on or paint, and it still looks awesome.
It still looks awesome. It just always looks awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's really fun to make as well. Flyers as well. They performed as expected. Pretty much deleted something every time they came on the table.
View.
Apart from one turn where they actually left one alive, but.
Oh well. I'm glad that the guard flyers are good because like there's a few guard flyers, and I heard it said that like if you wanted to do flyer heavy, it's like Space Marines the way to do flyer heavy because they've got better air vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, strictly speaking, I think the lightning fighters and stuff are slightly better, but the Avenger Strike fighters do their job, and they do it well.
It feels like the most Imperial Guard sentence ever. They do their job, they do it well.
This is the aftermath at the end.
Those poor Night Lords.
Yeah, there's very little left. There's a handful of jump back troops.
So where are the where's the relic? I'm trying to. Is it?
It's in the.
Is it at the back?
Bottom right hand corner.
Okay, right.
Yeah, you can see Els has got a little command stand there that used to have, and I say used to have, there used to be 4 TAC bases with that with him. No, sorry, there used to be 8 missile bases and 8 plasma bases all around that objective, and I cleared them all off with the Avengers and a very quick strafe from 1 Titan gun.
I can see the attempt at the drop pods on the back line. I'm like, that feels like that'd be a great tactic. I'm not seeing any aftermath of that though.
No, the Dreadnoughts dropped in. They shot into my Leman Russes, but the Leman Russes' armour proved insurmountable, and I rolled every save. They immediately turned around and blew them all away.
Oh, those poor Terminators.
Those are Dreadnought drop pods, those ones.
Oh, those are Dreadnought drop pods. That's even worse.
Yeah. No, it sadly did not go very well. I rolled hot a lot, and I rolled in turn 4. Everything I shot at died.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, and every time she tried to shoot my tanks, I didn't lose a single tank. Every single one of them survived.
Jesus.
That's how the rolling went. It had nothing to do with skill. That was pure luck. Just
absolutely just rinsed.
Yeah. So it's no bad play on Elle's part. It's not particularly good play on my part. It was just dice told that entire story.
At the end of the day, it's a dice-based game. There's going to be times where the dice work for you, and there's going to be times where the dice don't work for you.
Yeah, and they really didn't work for us this time, which is very sad.
If we didn't have the dice aspect, it wouldn't be as much fun. It wouldn't be as interesting a game.
And I couldn't see in that last picture, but I did have some infantry just ready to jump onto that objective and take it. So
rude.
Yeah, so we knew it was game over by that point.
I do feel like just musing on the Terminators. I know it wasn't Terminators, but I said about the fact that Terminators in the drop pods, which I realised also would be redundant. Anyway, but I do feel like we need some other we need the other weapons on Terminators, because just having Storm Bolters at the minute. They just feel like they could do just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the Terminators are interesting in the fact that they really don't provide a lot compared to a lot of the other units in the game, I don't think. The jump pack troops tend to be better in most combat situations. The standard infantry are a lot cheaper and more efficient for shooting anyway. Plasmas and missile launchers are generally better. I mean, I will also say that we play the missile launchers hitting on 5s, not 4s.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
Which works well. They still punch. Yeah. Again, not in this game, but in a previous game, they did take out a Baneblade in a single round.
Nice.
In this game, the Warlord Titan, actually, the only time I actually was scared of losing something was when 8 Contempt Dreadnoughts with las cannons fired at it, and it took off all of my Void Shields. That was just 8 Contempt Dreadnoughts, and my Warlord was suddenly naked with no defences. Like, what?
That's wild.
And again, she managed to get a few shots into it and did manage to take it down to 3 wounds, but the Titan then turned around and said, nope.
I was going to say, you annoy that Titan, it's got enough guns, it's going to cause a problem for you.
Yeah, literally, the next activation after those Dreadnoughts went on, my Titan just went, boop, and they all died.
Have you seen that animation that somebody did of the Titan?
The one with the Imperator with its massive plasma.
And they're like, enemies detected to the west. And it's like removing the west and just fires this plasma.
Yeah, that's basically what happened in this game. Yes.
Just like, you popped my shield. You hold the phone. Just be like, just with the hand, just holds up a finger and just being like to like the group over there, be like, 1 second, it just spins 180 and just blows away the corner of the board.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Are you excited for the new Titan animation by chance as well?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Although, I feel like I already know that they don't complete the mission.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty confident they can't complete the mission.
I'm just gonna hunch, you know. I don't think they're gonna win
unless it's in a parallel universe.
Ooh. I do still enjoy just the absolute the size of like those Bane blades every time.
They are bricks.
It's wild.
I need to get the other two made up.
And what's the loadout on this Warmaster here? Wait, Warlord.
So it's got a Sun Fury Plasma Annihilator. It's got
what a name.
An Atrioc Power Claw, which is obviously the kit I came with. The kit I got had the 2 Bellicosa cannons, which are great if you're up against other Titans, but Els doesn't run Titans, so they're kind of worthless. So I had to print some new ones, so that's why it's got those. And on top, we've got paired Gatling blasters, which are very tasty, do a lot of damage. 8 shots hitting on 4s, -2, so they will plough through most things.
Just churn whatever they're coming up against.
Yeah, I was intending to run it with the Apocalypse missile launchers.
Oh yeah.
But it turns out that all of my spare guns have been packed away for the move, so I just thought, oh well, I'll go WYSIWYG.
Yeah, just run it as is.
Yeah, but yes, I had intended to use the Apocalypse missile launchers because they are filthy good, and I do run those on my Warmaster.
The do you say it's a power? Is it a power claw, power fist, or what's
it's
it?
a power claw. Even though it's more like a fist, but
does it have guns on the back of it as well? Because it looks like it's got almost like the wrist-mounted storm bolters.
It's basically got. It's not quite a Vulcan Mega Bolter, but it's very close.
Okay.
It's like a slightly, and I mean slightly, toned down Vulcan Mega Bolter, which makes that claw for me like an auto-include weapon, because Titans and Knights, but specifically the Titans, really struggle in combat. They can be taken down very easily.
You say very easily.
Oh no! I mean they'll stomp a few bases, but you can trade up very efficiently against a Titan in combat if it's got no power, if it's got no melee weapons. Whereas the moment you put a melee weapon on, they suddenly become monsters.
Okay. So how many bases of Assault Marines will I need to take down a Titan?
Well, Els charged a Reaver Titan with 8 bases and still did not kill it.
So it's more than 8.
More than 8. I mean, this one did, again, it did have a chain fist, so it did have a combat weapon.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think she did take off half its wounds, though. It did do some damage.
That's not bad.
But yes, it was a little bit unfortunate. Yeah. So, if you want to take down Titans, you can trade up rather efficiently by throwing infantry at them. But if they've got a melee weapon, not quite as easy.
I mean, on the game that I played, I would have loved to have tried some melee, but I left my Ogrins in a building, and that building exploded.
Yes, when when a Titan sees melee units in buildings and they've got generally do normally have a demolisher weapon on them, buildings don't last very long.
Neither did my Ogrins.
No. In fact, I think every single infantry that isn't a Space Marine auto dies.
Yeah.
Because you take a hit. When the building dies, you take a hit on every model at -1 AP, and all of the auxiliary infantry are 6-up saves, so they just die.
Yeah.
And Space Marines might survive if they roll a 6, which I actually think does kind of make sense. You know, if your building collapses on top of you, unless you're a Space Marine, and even a Space Marine's probably going to die.
Yeah, but there's a chance.
But there's a chance, yeah. It's an interesting one. Also, I have discovered that infantry in transports, it's very lethal to lose infantry inside transports.
Oh, really?
That's a mistake I made. Not in this game, because I knew about it, but in the previous game. So I had my Dracosians, which I thought were quite big and tanky. They only had 1 wound, which I was surprised at because they're so big. I thought they'd have 2. They do have a 2-up armor save. But infantry on the inside, if a vehicle is destroyed while infantry in it, you have to make a save of 4-up. So you have a 50-50 chance of losing everything inside.
Ooh.
That's big. Considering you used to 40k, where it's on a roll of a 1.
Yeah.
You got 1 in 6 chance of dying. Now you got a 50-50 chance of losing units inside transports.
That's pretty rough.
If it's a flyer transport that's not in hover, as in literally still flying, they're dead outright. Which makes a lot of sense, but...
Yeah.
But even just losing a Dracosian, in the game we played a couple weeks ago, I lost my 2 Dracosians, and I thought, I've got 8 bases in there. I'll check the rules. I'm sure it's probably just a 1 they die. 50%. What? Rolled it. And I lost about 80%. I was okay.
This maths isn't mathsing.
I have learned now that you do have to be a little bit more clever with your transports than you might normally want to be.
Just a little more cagey.
Or at least try not to get them in direct line of sight of big guns too early.
Yeah.
Because they're actually not that safe.
No.
So yes. Lessons learned.
Important lessons learned.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it really. The game went well. It was fun.
That's really cool. No, I'm glad that the missions are easy enough to flex into, where you can go. Or sorry, they're simple enough where you can make a small tweak and it immediately fixes it. That's good to know that they're you've written them well enough that they can just be fixed like that.
Yeah, well, that was the goal, which is what I've only written 4 so far. In fact, mission 4 hopefully we'll be trying this week at some point before the move, which will be more interesting. Will probably be the most interesting one because that actually involves transporting or escorting transports from one side of the table to the other.
Oh, is this your transport the VIP kind of thing? Ooh, yeah, that's cool.
Or evacuation mission, I think. I'm looking forward to trying that one because conceptually I think it will work. It'll be interesting to see how well it actually plays. Could be quite interesting.
Yeah, that was cool.
Right then. Well,
yeah.
I think that is probably more than enough tankard talking.
We talked some tankards. We talked around some tankards? I don't know.
Yes. So let's move over to the main discussion and let's have a look at the First Legion.
Mm-hmm. See you there.
See you there. Welcome back. Here we are, main discussion time, and unlike usual, we're on personal cams rather than a group cam because there's only the 2 of us, and we might as well have the person speaking the most in the 4.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, I'll click the buttons at the right time and it won't be so awkward. We'll find out.
Be fine. Brian, there's one of us in the focus. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the hope. So, today we are going to be discussing the First Legion, your army, John.
Yes, my army.
The army that you have now supposedly committed to.
I mean, I've painted enough to prove commitment, and I have got some ideas, and hopefully by the end of the day I'll have more ideas, which means that I will be fully cemented into them. But I'm feeling better about them as a faction.
Okay, well,
it's
a good start.
it feels like kind of like this is the one I want to go with.
So let's make tracks and actually start the discussion, shall we? So
Yes,
the origin of the army. So, obviously, as we've alluded to many times previously, and you get berated about constantly, is your flighting between armies and colour schemes and factions and ideas. We've seen a bit of that in Tankard Talk today already, with 3 different projects.
yeah, that's fair.
What draws you to the First Legion?
So the First Legion, Dark Angels, they were ones that, from like a perspective of the big hammer, also has like a bit of an appeal. In terms of building them as like big things there. But honestly, it's the same reason I like them in the same ways that I like Black Templars. The kind of the key difference in terms of why I wouldn't want to do like Black Templars at Legion scale is I don't think that the black would look as interesting. Trying to do like the entire Black Army, which is also why, weirdly, coincidentally, Dark Angels, I don't want to do them in Heresy era colours. I want to do them in like modern era colours, because I feel like that just makes them stand out a bit more, adds a bit more kind of flavour to them. The first and foremost bit, and just the simplest answer is I like the knight vibe. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that actually,
I feel like we better clarify. You like the sort of medieval knight vibe rather than the knight vibe.
Yes, the medieval knight vibe. For them, I think that's things kind of like really drawn me to them. Is knowing that I can do a bit more of kind of the, because I mean they had it during the Heresy, obviously, because they've always had that kind of like medieval knight vibe, but adding into essentially kind of like the more gothic designs, the more gothic vibes that come out in modern 40k compared to Heresy is like that's what's made them appeal kind of even more. So yeah, the appeal has very much been like I want to do the kind of like the knights style, in the medieval knight style. Keep adding that caveat there, and then I've had a look at some of the lore around Dark Angels. I need to do more reading. Probably try and pick up coincidentally leading into something that we'll be talking about in a little bit, but I need to pick up the Lion book, the
Son of the Forest.
Son of the Forest, yes. Because I think that is definitely going to be one. Like I know some bits of what happens in it. I don't know all the details, but I know some little bits here and there. But that is one that I think is going to have a big impact on where I want to take the Force, because I've got some ideas of like a narrative element to them, which coincidentally kind of leads nice into some of the narrative elements that we've discussed previously. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the long and the short of it, I think Space Knights are cool. Like space, like the vibe of Space Marines being essentially they are like monks in giant power armor. They're the coolest part of Jedi, but in even bigger armor.
Yeah, I mean they are literally meant to be the holy warriors, aren't they? The monastic knights, in which ironically Black Templars are almost literally the concept of the knight. But yes, the Dark Angels definitely have a sort of a broader appeal. I think like Heresy era Dark Angels were more almost more like the Templars, without the religious angle. Whereas I think the modern Dark Angels are almost like the romanticised knight, the Arthurian legend almost of the knight, rather than the gritty, realistic variation on it. That would be my interpretation.
I was going to say it's an interesting one actually, because I've looked at some of the like the old lore and some of the old designs that existed for Dark Angels kind of beforehand, and as I understand it, that wasn't actually part of their original like intended design, and that they were going to have a much more kind of like Mesoamerican kind of vibe to them, which is why like a lot of their iconography has things like the like feathers and things like that in their design. Like that was going to be more of their kind of design, and then they've since because medieval knights look cool, and there's definitely probably an element to it there of like where certain designers have taken certain things. They're just like, this is clear, it probably sells a bit better or something like that. I don't know, but I think there's definitely some very much like the Arthurian element to it. Is something that I'm gonna freely admit is going to be some leaning onto that as well. It just works for them.
it does, and I don't think there's any problem with that whatsoever. I would suggest going to read some of the heresy novels that the Dark Angels feature in heavily, but I've only read one, maybe two, where they feature at the moment, because in the first 20 books, obviously everyone tries to get a bit of screen time, and the early book that they're in is all about Lionel Johnson growing up on Caliban, which is an interesting read, but I don't think it will help you in shaping the Dark Angels as they currently are.
I mean, knowing, like, having a book reference that has kind of a bit more of like Caliban lore, because like there's things I'd like to have references to Caliban, in what I'm kind of going with, as we'll see with the aligned factions when we talk about those, having a better understanding of Caliban. The reason why I've not gotten into any of the Horus Heresy books is the idea of potentially starting that series scares me. I think I might just have to do I'm only going to read the books about chapters that I care about, as opposed to trying to read everything.
I kind of wish I did do that, but I'm 21 books too late.
We've all seen the handy chart. You can look at the chart and also enjoy the Oxcast reaction to the handy chart.
All I will say is that those books are phenomenal for ideas and reference material. I mean, they've completely reshaped my opinion of the Ultramarines from the Mark of Calf and stuff like that. It's just brilliant. And Wordbearers as well. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it is worth having a look at the Dark Angels ones. Like I said, but I haven't read any of I've only read their initial introduction to the series, because that's in that first 20 odd books. But I know later they go on to the Thramas Crusade. I think it is between Kurz and Lionel Johnson,
which would be perfect.
Perfect. So as soon as I get to that point, I will send you and Els a reference to go and read that book.
Yeah, I'll need to have a gander at that one.
I've heard it's good, and I know they did a whole supplement for it in this first edition of Heresy. I think it may have been part of the new one. I'm not sure, but
I'm just intrigued to read about the beef between our two particular areas.
It would be very interesting. I'm sure we could reference that somehow, but we'll come on to that. Do you have a central theme or idea or tone to your Dark Angels? So the force that you're going to build, because obviously Legions go, you could build the entire chapter. It's not actually beyond the realms of possibility in Legions. It would be mad, but not beyond the realms of possibility. But
yeah,
generally speaking, your force will be themed around a certain part of that faction. Specifically, when we're talking about if you're building a faction based on one of the armies or factions that are in canon, you will normally just take a piece of it. So, for example, some people will go and they'll play the Ultramarines because they're the poster boys. And that's the first time we get into, and they'll go, right, okay, I'm going to play the Ultramarines, but my force is going to be the 4th Company because there's not a lot written about it. I think. I'm trying to remember now which companies have been written about.
I know it's not important, but I'm trying to whether you've accidentally hit on the one that has had all of the things written about it or not.
Entirely possible. I know it's obviously Kato Sakaris, Uriel Ventress, Captain Akaran now. He's in a game. So whichever one that those guys aren't involved in.
Those are all 4th Company.
Oh,
I think I know there's the whole one of Uriel Ventress is the 4th Company.
It's probably why it was in my head.
I was going to say, I feel like they're one of the most famous companies because they're with a green trim on the shoulder.
Okay, all right, 5th Company.
I don't think anybody's written about the 5th Company.
I'm pretty sure that's a reserve company, but whatever. They will pick a company that doesn't generally have a famous named character. They will have their captain as their personal avatar on the battlefield or whatever they want to do. They'll have their own characters, their own formations, and they'll have their own combat doctrine that captain has developed over his career, or how you've developed over your gaming career, and that will kind of bleed into each other. Legions, I don't think there's any reason why we can't do the same, and I would encourage us to do that. So, do you have a concept that you might like to go for? Do you want to say build a specific Dark Angels company, or could it be a lost company that's returned, or something from the days of heresy where they've come back into the fold and after warp shenanigans have suddenly reappeared, and Azrael's got to turn around and say, oh, right, technically we're over 1,000 Marines now, so you guys go off and fight this random group of Night Lords in the middle of nowhere and we'll pretend you don't exist.
Yeah, we'll just hide you over here. So in that regard, I haven't necessarily nailed down where kind of that vibe is. The main kind of elements that I like the idea of, and again, this is ever so slightly jumping ahead in terms of where I'd like to kind of take this. But I know we've spoken a lot about the idea of Primarchs and things like that, and I kind of like the idea of this, this force in a weird, kind of a narrative parallel as it was to what Els is going for with the Night Lords. Kind of having this faction that is trying to find the lion from by essentially kind of putting themselves on this kind of basically a penitent kind of crusade element to it. I like the idea of the kind of the redemption kind of crusade, or actually maybe that's a kind of redemption crusade, more of a vengeful crusade as it was. From the perspective of the destruction of Caliban. Again, so in terms of kind of how I would want to have them built, and this leads into I guess the vibe, and then but also something which I know is a different question, but having them fleet based. I think fleet based chapters is something which I do also really enjoy, simply because it also gives you the opportunity to potentially build the ship. If we ever wanted to branch into
Battlefleet Gothic. Thank you.
Name just skipped the brain there. Having actual representations of those kind of ships for a fleet-based thing.
I mean, I will say right now that if Games Workshop re-release Battlefleet Gothic, we're playing it. Because I'm a massive fan of naval things anyway, especially space combat. It fascinates me to no end. So yes, if Battlefleet Gothic returns, we will be playing it. If it doesn't return in the next year or so, we may just have to dig up the old rules anyway.
Just play it ourselves.
Because I also think Battlefleet Gothic would be a great side game for Legions, because it's just on the right scale.
You could also totally do the like one game affects the other in a campaign. Something that you if you can break through a blockade, you can have your ship in orbit and it can fire down onto the ground and stuff like that.
There's lots of potential for cross mechanics and stuff like that across systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have also been contemplating the idea of incorporating Kill Team as well, because I know you're a fan of Kill Team.
I am a fan of Kill Team, and that would be really good fun. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that.
And for me personally, it would give me an excuse to paint some small stuff that's 28mm scale.
Yeah, just a little Kill Team, and there's enough of them. I will say that, just coming from a Kill Team perspective, your Space Marines, doing them as Chaos, like access to Legionaries. There's the dedicated Night Lords team, so that one's kind of perfectly set up.
Yeah, that'll work.
There's going to be, I was going to say, there's going to be a brand new AdMech team set up for Joe.
Yep.
I feel like if you were going to do Guard, Tempestus Aquilion, so the jump pack guys, they're new.
I'm very interested in them because I like the look of them, and I've already found the models for my own for Legion scale. So
there you go. So you can just slot those in there, nice. Yeah, nice, easy. Yeah, going to the kind of like the tone. I really want to go in terms of kind of like building the force, building how they're going to look. I want to have obviously all the different wings. Mm-hmm. They are going to be Dark Angels, as opposed to like a successor chapter in the Dark Angels colors. Mm-hmm. Using Dark Angels, but a successor chapter, so in different colors. I'm going to stick with the actual.
They're going to be part of the primary chapter.
Yeah, they're good. Although I after you said it, I do really like the idea of, they're this force that maybe got kind of like lost during the heresy, hence why they've got a lot more of like the heresy gear. And then they've just like spat back out and be like, yeah, so what's going on? And the other thing that then leads in really nicely into as well, is the other faction that I really want to have with them is like probably more Knight Household, but Titans is what I've got kind of at the minute, maybe like some kind of combination of those, is having this like Knight order of knights that were previously based on Caliban. And that would work perfectly in terms of like this this chapter that we're transporting. They had their Marines and these knights on board of this ship. They go out, get stuck in the warp, come back, and they're like, by the way, guys, where you thought there was going to be a Caliban to return to, there is no more Caliban. And actually, yeah, maybe that's more of like their drive, their driving force for, we're going to keep getting rid of chaos because we can't get our planet back, but we're going to make it their problem.
I mean, one thing I think would be quite key for certainly us when we're talking narrative. So a lot of our stuff in the future, when we start doing the reports and stuff, is going to be narrative focused. And unlike a lot of channels that kind of can just run off with smaller games because they generally play 40k, it's quite easy to imagine that after 10 battle reports that only a handful of Space Marines have died. So easy to replace. But we're going to be playing Legion scale, so we're potentially looking at hundreds of Astartes going down during our games, which could be entire chapters worth almost, or certainly entire companies worth. So it would be nice if there was a narrative way for us to explain away why there are so many Dark Angels. And the idea of a lost contingent of the Legion of old coming back would kind of fill that gap, because you could almost say, well, this was a Legion strike force that was 10,000 strong.
Yeah.
And they've suddenly come back. And Dark Angel was quite secretive anyway, so there's nothing to say that this couldn't happen, and they just brushed it under the carpet, said, right, repaint your armour, and go and avenge Caliban, bugger off.
Yeah.
And again, I hadn't even thought about the idea of the explaining away the older armour marks as well, because that also works beautifully then as well.
Yeah.
Especially if they do end up bringing out Mini Saturnine, because I know you're going to want that, because
I'm 100% going to want. Yeah, I am. If they bring out like a new box that is, because it would be Saturnine and it would be Mark II, which Mark II I already love as an armor pattern. It's for Dark Angels. It's like the perfect armor pattern because it is that bucket helmet, plated armor kind of vibe. And again, would work narratively really well because it'd be like that was the armor that they had. But yeah, the idea of that this incredibly ancient mark of Terminator armor just suddenly rocks back up would be no, I like it.
I think that kind of background will probably fit narratively quite well and solve some problems we might have to contend with.
I also would probably if we, depending on what kind of, we are going to go obviously for like a narrative level, and we'll talk about it maybe more when we get into kind of characters, but the idea of the essentially that kind of secretive nature of them is they didn't go out with chaplains because chaplains were a thing, but not in the same way. And now they've been
well, no, because during the heresy, all the chaplains were word bearers.
Were they?
They were all word bearers.
I didn't know that.
Yes, the chaplaincy, the reclusium, and all that lot, they were word bearers sent out by Lorgar to every legion.
Well,
so
I bet that was
all the original chaplains were word bearers.
Ooh, that's exciting.
This is where you get into some interesting concepts, because during the Legion days, obviously chaplains were all word bearers, and every legion had at least a handful of them. So the word bearers were in amongst all the others. The Thousand Sons used to send agents into all the other legions as well to learn from and teach psychic disciplines. And obviously, Alpha Legion infiltrated them all as well. Quite a few of the legions were infiltrating each other, both openly and not.
From the perspective of a force that kind of got lost, maybe even just because they would be at a kind of a higher strength. Maybe if it was the case that even if they got kind of lost, during the Great Crusade, before the heresy,
could be,
would be, it would be like a. So guys, you've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, whichever way you do it, I think will work well. I think the concept of something coming back and having the numbers to solve a lot of issues is probably a good move.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of ways we can sort of weave a narrative around it so that it doesn't break the sacred timeline, if we're going to use Marvel terminology.
Yeah. It's 40k. You just kind of the timelines are irrelevant. If it doesn't make sense in terms of the timeline, it's just because it's an unreliable narrator involved.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to be taking some liberties with certain things anyway, but if we can mitigate some.
And in some ways, some really strong liberties.
Yes. But, that's how we tell stories.
Yeah. We have fun with it.
Just even though this potentially might be a force that, has come back from the past and the Dark Angel is trying to keep it hush-hush, doesn't mean that the Lion himself won't feature. Well, we know he will feature because you've already painted him.
I would really like to have an excuse to run him out. What I was going to say is the aspect of the lion kind of going round, and as again, I need to get round to reading the Lion book. But as I understand it, he's kind of going around and like trying to gather back up all of the fallen. And it could be a case of, you guys aren't fallen, but you also don't really exist. So I'm going to come and check out like how, suss out what's going on here. And, they probably have like a stronger connection to the Lion because they're this chapter that, or this force that knew the Lion.
You are also in a unique position of having a Primarch that could very much act like the Sanguinor does for the Blood Angels, because he forest walks. He can be anywhere at any point, so he could literally just turn up and disappear again without breaking anyone's storylines, canon, or anything like that. Yeah. And also feature an interesting, cool ability on the tabletop. Wink, wink.
And it's almost as if there is a force that is going to be a foil in this regard that would have some beef, one might say, with that he might have some personal issue with.
He may do, and I suppose that does kind of potentially lead us on to a topic later on. So we'll come back to that concept.
Yeah.
So I think we're leaning into a potential narrative here.
I like it. I like the lean.
It's sounding pretty good, and it kind of already, we kind of naturally fall into my next sort of question anyway about tying into current 40k and Horus Heresy timelines or lore. Obviously, you will need to obviously have a bit of time to think about when they've come from, if we're going to go down this idea of they've come from the past.
Yeah.
What would be interesting though is, when do they arrive back? Are they going to arrive back after the events of Arcs of Omen? After Caliban's been reforged and turned into a demon world?
That is a worse time for them. Like, it's not just like they go, we've got a lot of catching up to do. So first of all, it exploded, and now it's a demon world. It's like, it's a what world?
I mean, to be fair, could that be your narrative hook? Maybe they're sent to go find it.
Ooh. Or whether it's a case of like, actually that would be a really interesting, that would be almost like a in the process of that, maybe like Caliban being reforged into a demon world is the thing that like drags this lost ship out from the war.
Yeah, I mean, there could be because obviously I think if I remember right at the end, Vashtor basically does like yank it out of reality and move it somewhere. So maybe that a psychic backlash, maybe a warp anomaly occurred, and this, well, probably not even just ship, it's probably even a small fleet of lost ships suddenly gets yanked out of the warp and appears in the wake of Caliban.
Could be cool.
Could be cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to work out if there is anything that I'm trying to remember the things that were said about it, because I haven't read all of the Arcs of Omen stuff. I saw it coming out and just didn't sit down and read it all.
I haven't read it all, but I know bits and pieces of it. I'm not 100% sure that I'm right about it being teleported away, but I'm 90% sure I'm right.
So is it that there's no more the Rock, or is it that the
because I think they still have the Rock, but I think the majority of Caliban was reforged and turned into what did he call it? Vashtor gave it a name because he renamed it.
The Wormwood.
Yeah, the Wormwood.
I'm looking up as we're going through this now.
I figured you might be. But yes, no, he converts whatever's left of Caliban into this demonic forge world almost.
In Corrupted Ruins of Caliban, transforming it into a mobile planetoid dubbed Wormwood.
It's an interesting choice of name as well.
It's worm as in WYRM.
Yeah, still an interesting choice of word for naming for Vastor. Not quite what I expected.
I get the feeling that they probably started with like worm as in dragon, and then worked backwards from there. Like wormwood. There you go. Plunged the planetoid into the abyss he created in search of the lock. The corrupted Hulk appeared at Vastor's command during the Prior Crusade. So yes, has literally turned Caliban into his own like personal transport, and then just stole it. So yes, I think like I like the idea of like the absence of Caliban is like the thing that like as it's like being pulled away, it's like this ship just gets like yanked back the other way for it.
Yeah, I think that'll probably work quite well.
Okay, so just after Arcs of Omen.
So your narrative will begin just after.
Which means I need to read up that particular section.
Okay, so that works quite well. Obviously, the storylines we write will probably take place some point after that, but
yeah, like they've gone through the whole. Presumably there was quite a strong Dark Angels contingent there, and just suddenly this old ship just appears.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know there was quite a significant Blood Angels force involved in that story.
There was, not anymore. The interrogator chaplain's got on board and been like, "Did you see a ship appear? Did you? Yeah, you know the answer."
We know your secret.
That could be an interesting one in terms of the a potential bit of clashing elements there.
Very interesting. Okay, well let's progress on then, because I think this leads us nicely into the sort of next stage, which is going a bit more into the design of how your faction or your characters and your stories are going to develop from. So specifically, their main base of operations, a Homeworld or Warzone that they're most familiar with or gain notoriety in. So in your case, obviously, we've already kind of mentioned that this force is probably a fleet-bound Legion strength force, potentially many millennia old. Which also means that they're probably not going to be based at the Rock.
No, I think I prefer the idea of kind of a mobile element to them.
Not that the Rock isn't mobile. Not that the Rock isn't mobile.
Yes, sorry. What I mean by like they're more mobile than how the Rock kind of operates. More of like a set of ships rather than something that is kind of like a station, as it was. Probably a named flagship. The immediate one that comes to mind in fitting with their vibe, like Caliban's Vengeance. Just having that on like the side on the side of a big old Imperial ship feels very apt.
Caliban's Vengeance, the Spirit of Vengeance,
Spirit of Vengeance, yeah. Yeah. No.
Vengeful Spirit.
Vengeful Spirit. Vengeance in 40k is a strong theme, okay? They just love to name their ship after things that just really vengeful.
Okay. So obviously you're going to be looking at a fleet-based force then. So something that's very mobile, which is interesting because obviously normally when I sort of look at these factions, they're generally based on some kind of planet or world, and therefore that kind of affects the cultural identity of the faction.
So I had an idea because obviously I have seen these questions already, and it was a small thing that came from how I was painting something that is an idea I want to keep. So whilst obviously they are fleet-based now, beforehand they were obviously based on Caliban. And obviously, whilst Caliban is most commonly associated with the forests of Caliban, to sustain a forest world, there must have also been like large bodies of water. Like it can't just exist as just a forest, because it's not like a jungle forest. It's a very I can't think of the right word for what those kind of trees are. Not deciduous. You know what I mean? So, the vibe. So, I really like the idea of like the kind of like the housing that they had when they were on Caliban, when they were initially kind of forged and formed and things like that, was close to the water. And one of the things that was happening is where they were constantly trained by the water, and this particular the inner circle that I'm going to have, because you've got like the inner like the equivalent of like the inner circle companions, that kind of like that vibe of the bone armored elite. Where I've done all my power swords in blue to make them stand out, I want to keep that idea, and it's essentially like they have more. Whilst they are still traditional power swords, they're more blue power swords because of their like association with training by the water and like the reflection that would come off of there. And they're like the azure blades and that kind of vibe to it.
Okay, that's cool.
So whilst they're not, they still have a lot of like the trappings of the green of the forest of Caliban. But one of the standout things is that they specifically have these power swords which are more blue in hue compared to just regular power swords.
Mm-hmm.
They're specifically designed to be that kind of like they stand out with that blue, and it's like a mark of honor to get one of these blue blades.
Okay, so they're going to be smaller supply, greater demand. Very
like exclusively reserved for your elites, your inner circle kind of get it, your captains and things like that. Not like every squad is going to have it, that kind of vibe.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so you got a little bit of a little bit of culture thrown in there, which is nice. So that's obviously a thing. I'm just reading now. Okay. So is there anything else about where you're envisioning them being based, obviously in ships, that might influence any other element to the army's look or ideology?
So I think for the main force, they're going to be kind of like stylistically wise, very kind of traditional Dark Angels colors. A faction which or like a subpart of the faction, which is not something I've kind of like fully nailed down yet. But funnily enough, after describing kind of what I've been going through, discussing this, a color scheme idea that I was thinking about going with, I think I am going to go with now, was for the Knight household and the Titan legions to go with it, and whether potentially I might go focusing more on specifically the Knight household, that their livery and their kind of like their identity is going to be that kind of like similar idea of like the blue. I quite like the idea of like blue standing out amongst like the greens and things like that. You've got greens and whites and blacks, and having your knight stand out in this kind of like this blue livery with probably blue and gold. I feel like it's just going to be a very strong blue gold lion. That's the vibe we're going with.
Do you know what that kind of immediately made me think of?
I know what it made me think of as it left my mouth, but please, you go first.
Is it the Warcraft main faction?
Oh, yeah, it is very much the Warcraft main faction. Do you want to know where my mind has gone?
Where did yours go?
There is a I'm trying to remember whether it was the first time they did it or the second time they did it, but the Lego Knights theme had the good guys in blue and gold, with a lion theme, and the bad guys in black and red with a dragon theme.
I mean, that's perfect, to be fair.
I was going to say, blue and gold just kind of work really well together. Like, you're trying to get across the idea of, your knights. Blue, gold, great color combo. Lion vibe. It just fits.
Yeah, and pairs nicely with my black and red dragon vibe.
I know, right? It's like it was meant to be. Although we will, if anybody, the people who watch this and then look at our two armies fight, you have to try and get out, escape that statement now that they will look like the old Lego knights fighting.
We're just gonna play Warhammer with Lego. It's fine.
I have seen it done, and it does look hilarious.
Yeah. Although the irony is actually our two armies are more likely to be paired up as allies than the others.
They are. Which I feel like is a what you call it, like a play on expectations. They look like they should be enemies, but they're actually allies.
Yeah, ironically, most likely to be allies than anyone else.
So, going into, I guess, a little bit of the kind of like things kind of shaping the identity, I do enjoy the idea of, whilst the knights were this like knight household, which was part of this fleet, like they'd gone out, the Titan Legion, though, I actually prefer the idea that at some point since they've returned, they helped save this Titan Legion.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to lean into that idea without having like a lot of Titans. So keeping like the Titan force relatively small, and maybe it's like, it gets built up over time, but like, keeping it to kind of like a smaller Titan Legion because they were this, this group that was saved by their actions, and then essentially kind of like been like, we travel with you now. So, they're not going to be tied to Caliban in the same way. So I think I'm coming up with some kind of like idea of kind of color scheme that they would then have. Probably something that works with maybe like a little bit like the green. Like they've essentially like changed their Titan livery to match and kind of combine with. The thought of having the kind of classic red and green is a good combo, although I do always worry that I will end up looking like I'm running a load of Christmas trees across the field. If I make them forest green and bright red, it'd be like, so the Christmas Titan Legion.
That could look interesting. I mean, if you really want
Princeps Saint Nicholas.
if you're not interested in having like lots of Titans and you just want a handful, and you're probably only going to paint a handful. With that concept, could you not steal the concept of free blades from the Night Houses and just do like a series of totally unique Titans?
They're just going around. They're collecting Titans like Pokemon.
Yeah, why not?
We just pick up like a different one each time. Be like, this one. We saved that one as well.
Maybe as they go around, maybe they. What's the word I'm looking for? Conscript Titans into their force.
Yeah, like we say we help you, but in exchange we get one of your Titans. It feels very 40k to be like, we need this thing to start, and be like, yeah, but do you though? We need it more.
That could be their tithe.
I was like, at this rate, I should be painting them up as blood ravens if they're going to go around stealing that much.
Well, still bird themed wings. Angels.
They're still birds.
Avianish.
I'm just going to say I'm not going to, but I do like the idea of like the Blood Angels color scheme. I just don't want to have to do cream shoulder pads on that scale.
Yeah, I can't say.
I'm happy with the cream armor because I've got it to a thing where I just basically just do white and then skeleton horde, and it makes perfect bone armor.
Yeah, and you only have to do that for a handful of models,
as opposed to a little tiny bit of cream on every single army. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, but I do like the idea of like the kind of the Titan tithe.
I'm just thinking, obviously, you do enjoy painting, so it'd be a good excuse to just do whatever colour scheme you wanted.
Yeah. it was what I was going to do when I do knights for 32mm scale, 28mm scale. That was going to be they're going to be done as free blades, just so I can do like a little bit of different, a different livery on SNG every single one.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, how can I tie them all together? Anyway, yes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on to the next bit then. So we've kind of discussed, a little bit of the Allied forces, and we've looked at the sort of the potential cultural backing and where they've all come from.
Yeah.
So with that all in mind, generally speaking, obviously, at some point in time, depending on how into you get into legions and all that lot, you may end up having a army that has access to every possible detachment and unit in the game. But even if you did, you'll probably have a theme to an army, or a part of the army you enjoy the most and will probably have more of. So what do you envision being the sort of the detachment types that you would want to focus on?
So I think from my perspective of things that I enjoy in games, am I good at using them? No. But do I enjoy using them? Yes. Is the melee focus. So I think probably first and foremost, the thing that I'm going to be initially focusing on is the assault. So the jump assault troops, that kind of, the vibe of trying to get in close. So probably having like more of like an infantry focus. If / hopefully when we get the spoilers, was that what they were called? The on foot?
Sorry, despoilers or desolators. One of the two.
Chainsaw on foot. That kind of that squad would be the one that I'd really like to see, kind of more of having this kind of, getting up the board, fast attack kind of vibe. So detachment types is stuff that is melee focused, probably first and foremost. I'd probably also quite like to see, and I'd need to get some more of them. The plasma guns, and probably like having infantry with like the more kind of esoteric weapons. If we get stuff like Volkite, and essentially this idea of they've been leaning into this idea of they've been around for a long time, they have access to all these weird weapons, and kind of get focusing more down that kind of avenue. But first and foremost, just because I like the night vibe, it's going to be guys with chainsaws jumping out of stuff and going and hacking things to pieces.
I'm gonna when I edit this, I'm just gonna put like have you seen any of the Tabletop Tactics ones where they have the big foghorn going off and text on the screen?
Possibly.
Well, I'm gonna do something like that, and it's just gonna say World Eaters.
Yeah, but World Eaters are like they're so much more one-dimensional, and they're not space knights. This
is true, but you just described World Eaters.
I know I just described World Eaters. But I don't want to play World Eaters.
Oh, it's just funny. It tickles me a little bit.
I know. I want to play World Eaters without being World Eaters.
Which is fair. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I don't know what it is. I feel like it's a mental pushback from all the times that you go, you should be a World Eaters player. I'm like, no, don't want to. I'm just going to be obstinate about it.
It's no different to me. Whenever I play an army, I just find the trickiest way to play them. It doesn't matter what the army is. If I was playing World Eaters, I would probably make a thematic World Eater that's a little bit more clever than the others, and does ambush tactics and guerrilla fighting rather than just randomly charging.
Have you seen? Sorry, entirely off topic for a brief second here. We can tag the off-topic section. Have you seen the new World Eaters strat, which is insane?
No.
So it is a 1 CP. Whenever a unit dies, within 3 inches of where that unit died, or is it 9? I think it's within 3. So within 3 inches, wherever that unit died, you can set up a unit of bloodletters.
Oh.
Any unit, just where they died, you now set up within 3 inches a squad of bloodletters.
That's cool.
And this isn't like a squad of bloodletters that you've had in reserves. No, this is an additional to whatever you have.
Oh, you just get.
You just get a unit of bloodletters.
Oh, that's cool.
Please note, within 3 inches of where they died, it does not matter if that within 3 inches...
It's within 3 inches of an enemy unit.
It could be within 1.1 inch of an enemy unit. It doesn't matter, providing they're not in engagement range. You're fine.
See, that just makes me want to play the 4 Chaos Legions.
Yeah, you kill a unit, bloodletters are there. A unit kills you, bloodletters are there.
Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's so cool. See, I would do World Eaters, but I wouldn't do just World Eaters. I'd have to do all 4.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I won't, but it's cool.
But that's cool. That is cool. I even out of it, that's cool. But that is how you play Tricksy World Eaters. You could just drop things that are going to kill themselves and then make bloodletters.
That's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, you would.
No.
You drop things that would intentionally die just to make more bloodletters.
Yeah. No. The only thing I've seen is the new the new 8-bound. Yeah, they're insane. The amount of damage those things kick out.
Although I did enjoy with the Thousand Suns Codex being slightly leaked. Magnus is stronger than Angron.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers wise, like the melee on Angron is obviously more insane, but Magnus is literally strength wise stronger than Angron.
Yeah, which actually does make sense considering he is a shapeshifter. So
and
if he wants to be stronger, he can be.
yeah, it's just funny.
It is funny.
I get the logic. I get why, and the rules reflect a more balanced approach, but it just amuses me that one is stronger. But anyway.
Yes, tangent.
Sorry. I'll tell you, the other thing that, I guess, detachment-wise, I know they're not good, but I like them, is not Rhinos, Predators.
Predators aren't bad.
I like Predators. I just think they look really cool.
Yeah, they're fun. There's nothing wrong with Predators.
So yeah, Predators and Jump Assault, that's where I want to go.
So, Jump Assault, Predators... you also, obviously, we don't have them yet. You want to do ground pounding runners with chainswords.
Yeah.
Which obviously means, I'm assuming, transports.
Yeah, probably more rhinos, than Land Raiders.
The classic World Eaters Rhino Bomb.
The classic World Eaters Rhino Bomb. It's World Eaters Ben Green, okay? Yep. Look, let's not be a bad butch here.
So Thunderhawks.
Yes, I mean I have a Thunderhawk. I will definitely be looking to get more Thunderhawk.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, if it actually comes down to it, and I'm thinking about where I want to go. I want them to be a force that has a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I really want them to feel like they're that proper mix of everything.
Combined arms force.
Yeah, like a proper obviously within Marines, but just having they've got some flyers, they've got some tanks, they've got some infantry, they've got some dreadnoughts. I just really want just a little mix of everything. In the ideal world, would I have at least one of every detachment? Maybe. I don't know whether it would be it would be a balanced list in the sense of there would be a little bit of everything, but I don't know whether that would be good.
I mean, you'd never. Depends on the size of the game, but you'd never get one of every detachment in a classic game anyway.
Yeah.
Do I think getting one of every detachment's a bad idea? No, hell no. Get at least one of every detachment. I'll probably do more than that.
Yeah, you get a couple of every detachment, but. You get what I mean by I want them to feel like this combined arms.
You want to be able to flex. You want to be able to flex into the situation, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
So I think one thing that will happen when we start doing our games, obviously, they are going to be narrative games, and they'll probably be part of the whole Total War campaign idea, whether that works or not. But even if that specific idea doesn't work, we'll still probably do map-based campaigns and custom missions, which means you'll have missions where you'll be besieging or being besieged in a fortification. You'll be doing ambush battles. You'll be doing standard pitch battles and funky outrider-based stuff. You're going to want to be able to flex into whatever situation. If you're going into a siege and you're the attacker, you're going to want to bring the artillery. You're not going to want to run a bunch of rhinos at a brick wall.
No. No, yeah, and like land raiders and things like that, like having a mix of stuff.
So that seems reasonable. So you definitely are going to be leaning into more, initially potentially more of like a shock assault force, maybe. Yeah. Just because I like the idea of the melee shock assault kind of vibe. Yeah, which is cool. So we're going to start off as World Eaters and then move into Dark Angels. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I initially planned the force as World Eaters and now I'm just wildly pivoting off that point, but Where did the word bears and the armorers come in? Okay.
But the Outriders are from the Dark Angels. That's where the Outriders coming in. Yeah. Oh, Outriders are fun. Bikes are fun.
Bikes are cool.
I'll tell you what, if I could find, and I could, can I do it? Yes, I can probably do it. Will I do it? Maybe. If I can make the bikes, maybe limiting it to just the captain, but I definitely want to get like a couple like the winged hussar vibe on the bikes. Get some of those wings on those bikes.
If you could do that, that'd be very cool.
I think I've got some ideas in terms of how I could do it.
I might be able to help you digibass something.
Yeah, get some hussar bikes going, and because they do get CAF, don't they? The bikes.
They do get a CAF, yeah. I don't think it's massive. Let's see if I can quickly have a look.
They've got like a reasonable CAF because that'd be a fun like assaulting force. Because there's a couple of different bikes in because there's the Outriders. The Outriders are CAF 2.
Yeah.
And the jet bikes are CAF 2 as well.
Okay. That's standard for Space Marines.
Yeah, they're more than a Land Raider. Not a Land Raider, a Land Speeder.
Yeah, to be fair, they don't actually have much of a melee profile at all.
The Assault are CAF 3+. The Terminators are CAF +4.
But Standard Marines are 2, so they're the same as Standard Marines.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, you'll probably be wanting to run what is it, Black Knights?
Yeah.
So we can make a slightly punchier melee profile for Outrider Squadron.
Yeah, like worse. Was it like maybe worse shooting profile? I'm trying to remember whether Black Knights do have. I think they've got pretty standard shooting. Oh no, they don't have standard shooting.
Do they not? Oh, they're the ones with the big plasma guns on them.
They've got dual plasma guns on the front of their bikes. They're like, what if we didn't take bolters and instead took something that could explode?
And they also equip with power weapons as well, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So you're looking at an Outrider unit that's probably going to have a CAF of 2 or 3 plasma guns on which are already in the profile of this thing anyway as an upgrade option.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at 10-inch range, 1 dice hitting on 4s, -1 light AT, which is pretty nice. A Jinx save. You'd either give them extra CAF or you'd give them Furious Charge, which means you get +2 CAF on the charge rather than +1.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, that's if they already get the plasma guns as an option, then I guess they probably wouldn't be much more expensive because they work out, 15 points a base? So it'd probably only be, a couple points extra to make some Black Knights.
Get Samael as well, or at least a Samael vibe character with a big old plasma gun. I also had forgotten about the land speeder Vengeance.
Oh yes.
With the plasma storm battery on the back.
Lots of plasma.
They lean hard into plasma, and also, Jamie, something that you'll have great fun with. They've got their own special aircraft, haven't they?
Have they?
The Nephilim jet fighter.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Is a Ravenwing specific. It's the Ravenwing Dark Talon or the Nephilim jet fighter.
Very cool.
Which is based off of the Storm Talon? No.
So I'm going to be competing in the skies, basically.
I mean, the goal is to have a little bit of everything. Oh yes, I remember the Ravenwing. Sorry, I just had to look at a picture because I was trying to remember which one it was. So the Ravenwing Dark Talon is the one that has like a small bit of a church built into a plane.
I genuinely don't know if I've ever seen that.
What else has it got thrown on it? It has a rift cannon and a stasis bomb.
Nope, beyond me.
Yeah, no, they look cool. I thought that. Here, let me throw it your way so you can perceive it. But yeah, that could be a fun one. It fits the bill in terms of, as I was saying, for like weird esoteric weapons.
I have seen this before. I haven't seen it for a long time though.
It also has hurricane bolters built into the wings. Because why not have all of the DACA?
Well, I mean, if you can find a file for it.
You know me. You know me.
I know. Well, I will have a challenger for the skies, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's very cool.
That's cool. I dig the vibe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a fun thing. Didn't know about that one.
Yeah.
New ideas there.
Okay, well, let's have a quick little sideways glance then at the allies that we're looking at popping into this army, because I've tried to encourage everyone on the team to at least have some elements of other factions. Because one, I think it gives you more options, and two, I think Legions is actually well designed for allies, whereas stuff like 40k and stuff has always struggled with the concept, whereas Legions just seems to work. So if the option's there, I encourage everyone to do it.
Yes.
Some of you are going to do it more than others. Obviously, I've gone full out and I've got 4 armies in one.
Yep. They just kind of mix and match into there.
Yeah.
They're very pleasing.
I like them. So obviously, you're obviously looking at Knights and Titans.
Yep.
Which we've already kind of discussed a little bit. So your Titans are going to be sort of a lot rarer in your force.
Yeah. The Titans are going to be the smaller one because, as I said, I like the idea of the Knights being this kind of like very like closely knit order within. They're almost kind of like a part of it. You know, they are a knight household that was on Caliban. Even though I don't know whether there was a knight household on Caliban, but
it's a whole planet.
The whole planet.
You can have whatever.
And I mean, given that knights were intended to be like, you know, machines for work, and it's a forest world, it actually almost makes sense that they would have the giant chainsaws. So having knights as kind of like a part of it is definitely going to be like they're very tightly woven into it. The Titans, I quite like the idea of the Titan Tithe. I probably need to like work a little bit more. Like I want Titans there because I think they're cool. I just need to figure out how they're going to weave into that narrative. The one I'm more struggling with from a perspective of, I like some of what they have. Are they what I want to run? Is like the Guard.
Mm-hmm.
For the Solar Auxilia, they're very much like in terms of list of priority, in terms of what I'm going to grab, they're probably more of like a maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They're not super high on this. So I'd probably go, if we're going to go with like factions I'm going to have prevalent, I want to have like Marines at the top, Knights running alongside, Titans. Probably actually AdMech and then Guard.
I was about to ask whether you might lean towards the AdMech rather than the Guard.
I think probably AdMech more. And again, that one could be, either this was the AdMech that were prevalent on the ship, or I prefer the kind of idea of this like AdMech explorative fleet being like, you guys have got some old tech. We'd really like to just have a look. Like, we'll keep everything working, but we get to look at it.
Mm. I think it's quite good to have it's nice to have a couple of factions in your force that are nice, tight knit, and they all work. But it's also quite nice to have like an offshoot faction that has a little bit of inbuilt animosity that you could potentially use, or not quite strong alliances, so that you can tell some interesting stories there.
Yeah.
Both in perspective of what we do on the channel, but also it enables you to create a new colour scheme, which also means if you're introducing someone to Legions, you can say, do you want to borrow this army? Because I literally do it currently with Elle. She borrows my Alpha Legion to bolster her Space Marine force.
And it stands out. Yeah, no, as I was saying, I'd be like, they're this kind of like getting suspicious looks when it's like, how much of our stuff are you taking? Like, I'm sure we had more gear here before.
Yeah, they're probably only cry when the Knights start missing limbs.
Yeah, be like, I'm sure this guy had 2 arms last time.
Where's his Thunder Fist? Why has he not got a chainsword?
A chainsword. Not like a knight chainsaw, just like a chainsword that they just stuck on there.
Just a Space Marines one welded on.
Yeah, just be like, I'm sure that had more last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So, definitely Knights, definitely Titans.
Yep.
Potential little smidgen of Mechanicus in there.
Yeah. Okay. A smattering of Mechanicus, I think, is just to have them be a little bit present and also just add a little bit of variety into it. But they're definitely going to be this like outlier force for it. They're not going to be the main. They're not going to have as much of a kind of as a prevalence, as I said. They're like kind of like going down through the list. They're definitely lower on the list.
It sounds similar to what I'm envisioning the Alpha Legion are for me, is that they're very much a self-contained force. I've got a very specific style for them. Yeah. I've pretty much built that now, so they're pretty much going to stay where they are until something new and fancy comes out, and I think, I'll just add that in.
I was going to say, it's funny, like your order is almost the reverse of mine.
Almost, yeah.
With the exception of the AdMech.
Yeah.
But like your Guard is like up there, and then Titans, and then Knights, and then Marines, whereas mine is Marines, and then Knights, and then Titans, and then Guard.
In terms of numbers, although in terms of actually like narrative superiority, it's Knights, Titans, Guard, Alpha Legion.
Yeah.
In terms of numbers, though, the Guard is definitely massively outnumbering everyone.
Let's be honest. you say narratively that you've got your Knights, Titans, Guard, Alpha Legion, but really it's actually Alpha Legion at the top as well as the bottom.
Alpha Legion are everywhere.
They're actually everywhere. Just nobody knows how many there are.
Yeah, pretty much. Like even in my Guard, that there are inbuilt hints that they are embedded with Alpha Legion agents. It's
all Alpha Legion all the way down. That's the joke.
Yeah, and that's what we enjoy. But yes, anyway, So yeah, okay, that sounds cool. So we got some options, we got some tangents, some little bits to give you a little bit of painting inspiration when you get a little bit bored of painting green, bone,
black.
black.
Green, bone, and black. Black is the one that I am actually dreading the most because it's the simplest, but it's also the hardest to make look good because you've got to work to make it look good.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you do black at Legion scale because I know I've seen people do it very effectively at 28mm scale with dry brushing techniques and stuff.
Yeah,
how you do that on Legion scale though, because although the models are nicely detailed, plastic or printed, dry brushing doesn't quite work that well at that scale. It's certainly not as well as it does on larger models for obvious reasons.
Yeah. No, I'm very much like I'm gonna have to figure this one out. But that's part of the fun. I enjoy experimenting with paint and figuring out how it works, and that's gonna be what I'm gonna do.
And I will look forward to listening, learning, and never repeating.
So it's just going to be a lot of me swearing as it doesn't quite work, but eventually getting there. You know?
Which we'll try not to do on camera.
I will reserve that for for my own home.
Okay, cool. Right. Well, we've looked at the macro scale of everything, which is quite appropriate for Legions. But now I'd like to end off the discussion really with a little look at the micro scale of Legion's narrative. So specifically the concept of heroes, villains, tragedies and stories. Okay. So obviously we've already spoken about the lion and that he will feature in the story.
He will definitely be popping up because I have two painted lions because I couldn't quite decide which version I wanted to have, so I have two lions.
So you have two painted lions. That's funny. I have two Primarchs as well. That's interesting.
Mine is just in different poses depending on how I want to have him.
So is mine.
Yes, you could have an army of Primarchs and it would be fine because they're all Alfarius.
I mean, I was kind of hating the fact that are you sure yours are Lionel Johnson?
Oh my god! It's all Alfarius all the way down.
Yes, so we know the lion will appear at points. Which will be interesting actually when we do some voiceover work. One of us might have to actually voice the lion. That could be fun.
That could be fun. Or we get a lot more money and we hire Charles Dance. And by a lot more money, I mean a lot more money.
I'd imagine he charges a hefty sum even for voice work.
Maybe Davos. Maybe Davos is cheaper.
Liam Cunningham, I think.
Liam Cunningham. Yeah, maybe he's cheaper than Charles Dance.
I'd imagine he probably is.
What we do is we find out events that they're going to, and we ask them things that then gets the sound clips that we need.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are laws against that.
But if we pay them for the question... I'm joking, of course I'm joking. Yes, I'm sorry, going for the actual thing. Yes,
so are there any other named characters you'd be interested in including, or have you got any ideas for your own characters?
So, I think for game wise, I actually want to stay away from any of like the named Dark Angels characters. Mm-hmm. So like Azrael and
Ezekiel,
Ezekiel, Belial. Even though I said like Samael earlier, so I definitely want to make my own characters for this, just to kind of keep it separate from the main thing. I'll probably be using like their naming schemes. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily have like names set in stone yet. I'm probably going to have a gander and go through a bunch of names of angels and stuff like that, and see if I can come up with some ideas around that. I think if I was going to do one who would appear. Oh, I'm going to have to look up the name because I forget the character's name. It is... Just I feel like he would be the kind of one that would turn up. Nope. Who's the lead chaplain?
Asmodeus?
Asmodeus.
Or Asmodai? Something like that.
Asmodai? Yes, no, Asmodai. Asmodai, Master of Repentance. Like, I definitely feel like
I'm worried that I know that, you don't, and I barely know Dark Angels.
I know I've read the name and I've read about the character. What I just couldn't remember was like what their name was at that specific moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
But like in terms of having a character that could appear in like the narrative, I feel like that could be a fun one to like pop up.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like checking it out. Other named characters, I'm looking and I'm just going. Cypher would be fun. Cypher would be fun.
Cypher could be fun.
Cypher could be really good fun. And it would be, from like a story perspective, it'd be an interesting one to see like how this Legion would interact with him, or how this like force would interact with Cypher. Isn't an interesting one there. I don't know whether that would be guaranteed for it, but definitely an interesting one. But I think outside of that, I want to have characters for all of like the heads of respective things. So like having a chapter master, or sorry, a company captain, kind of like.
That will be the interesting thing about the concept that we've already discussed. Actually, is obviously you can't have a chapter master or a grand master because that position's already claimed by Azrael. But could you still borrow the old Legion command structure?
Yeah, remind me what the old Legion command structure is.
I don't know it all very well off the top of my head, but I know chapter masters were the equivalent of company commanders.
Well then, yeah. So a company commander.
And then you'd have praetors, consuls, and all that jazz. Probably like Roman titles.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to read, but yes. So something like that. I think probably having a chaplain. So one of the things I do want to have is, and I can't remember whether I've said it or not, whether I've just thought about saying it, is that the exception to the rule of they're made up of this old force is the chaplain. So the chaplain, like just having this one chaplain who is a chaplain and is an interrogator chaplain to essentially be like, we're sending you because you just need to keep an eye on them to make sure that nothing weird happens. But other than that, like having that kind of like that old structure to it, I think would be cool. I don't know whether they used to have. Well, no, yeah, they did. But like tech marines and and like a apothecary and the kind of like the ranks, but not having your lieutenants and things like that in there. Like it's not the current structure. It's very much the old organization structure. I think it sounds really cool, actually. That would definitely be the area I'd like to go down, is to have that old Legion kind of structure to it, that old company structure to it. Cool,
sounds good. So we got a few characters maybe that need to be named and defined. So that's quite cool. Okay, so are there any sort of historical events that you'd like to base some of these characters on, or having been a part of, maybe, that you know of?
So this is where my lack of Horus Heresy knowledge is going to come back to bite me. This works quite well in terms of when did they disappear, and then when did they kind of come back to work out where those grudges exist. And the whole campaign against the Night Lords, I feel like, is a good point where they need to have been around for that, so that they have the real grudge when they come back for it.
Mm-hmm.
So and to them, it wasn't that long ago. So it's like there is personal, it's personal to them.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being a very good basis.
Would you get? And again, I think it'd be a really interesting one because from like, again, not saying that it's tying them in hard into the Night Lords, but obviously the interactions between the Dark Angels and Night Lords, there is quite a strong interaction between the two of them. But like the fact that Ele's force, as I understand it, this Ele's video, Ele's version of this video may will explore some different ideas. But having it where you've got like these Night Lords that are relatively new, maybe like them, I don't know whether any of them are going to be the old guard around since kind of the Heresy era.
She hasn't given much voice towards that, so.
But having this idea of like these guys are just like, why do they hate us so much? It's just it amuses me of this idea of being like my force being like, we hate you with every fiber of our being because of what you did, and they're like, I don't even know who you are.
That could have a quite interesting narrative to it as well, because you could almost paint the Night Lords as the almost the innocents here, where they're actually being attacked for things that they had nothing to do with.
Yeah, like they're still not good, but it wasn't their fault what they're being blamed for.
Yeah, I mean they might have done equally terrible things in the interim, but they're not being attacked for the right reasons.
They didn't specifically do this thing that you're blaming us for. We did loads of bad things, but we didn't do this thing that you're saying.
Which again could be quite interesting because you could have a really interesting interaction with the Night Lord's commander, like, how dare you attack me? I've done nothing to you. And then just like subtly kicking like the skulls of shattered bodies underneath the throne or something. Like,
yeah, I didn't do anything to you. Specifically you.
Like being really passionately offended.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I think that is definitely one that I think would be a fun avenue to go down. I know we've spoken before about the idea of like demons being in Legions. That's hopefully at some point officially, but if not, making our own rules for it. And I think the fact that they were like trapped in the warp, I feel like has led to them having some experience in combating demons as well. They've kind of like they've got that kind of experience. Maybe hopefully it hasn't left them with a warp taint. We'll see as the narrative emerges, but that kind of idea of they have fought in the warp because they had to.
Yeah, I mean, when it brought up demons, actually, slight tangent. I am considering getting a few demons put together as like an environmental effect, so that we could have. I did it a long time ago where I had like an effects table that you'd roll on for 40k. Don't think that was when me and you were playing that. I think that was when it was me, Gaz, and Joe.
But I remember you showing me it, so I have seen it.
This is like a D66 table.
Yeah,
it had loads of stuff on it. I was thinking of recreating something similar for Legions, and on a set of those, you would actually accidentally spawn demons in.
It would be cool if we add that in for like psychers as well. Like increases the chance of that happening.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of getting some demons done up maybe, just so that we can have like these cool things that just happen. Because I was also thinking we could make use of the orcs a little bit early on as well by having them as like a mercenary force that can just pop up.
Some what was it? Freebooters.
So I was thinking we could do something similar.
Or funnily enough, I ended up down orc war clans, like the various clans. The ones that I particularly enjoyed, I will need to remember the blue ones. Which one were they again? The Death Skulls. They would be a fun one to have as a small force because they're known to like try and get the fight over as quickly as possible so that they can start stealing stuff quicker. They're just like, if we fight fast, then we can start stealing things quicker. And they just all about just stealing stuff.
I love orcs.
That's so good. It's such a silly idea.
Yeah, they just work.
It just works. It just works. So yeah, the present at the point in the heresy where they have had that experience with Night Lords, but then have had experience, outside of that, probably whilst they're in the warp combating demons, and dealing with that particular avenue, and I guess maybe some Xenos interactions. I think could be an interesting one to maybe go down. Mm-hmm. Would it be something that I'd want to plan out which Xenos they've interacted with? Maybe if I have a think in terms of if there's any Xenos that I would want to play in the future, have them as an allied force. But that's going into other avenues.
That is creeping into some other territory.
Yeah, I think the kind of like their I enjoy narratives that are spawned from like the games coming around. So as there will be obviously some history with them, but I do enjoy the idea of like their story is an ongoing one. They've relatively recently re-emerged. They've had some battles, some interactions with like the various forces that are existing in 40k, but in terms of where they're going forward is going to be based off of kind of how the games go.
Okie dokie. Right, well, I think we've probably rattled on plenty on the First Legion, who are getting far too much love.
I'm very excited to do more with them and do more planning and come up with some more stuff from this. So I will say, at a bare minimum, JB, this particular episode has been incredibly helpful for me.
Well,
so
that was kind of what I was hoping. So it's done its job.
Yeah, I'm excited to make to do some planning, to think of some characters and some names and how they're going to look as a force.
Well, I'm very interested to see it.
Just need to put some paint on them now.
Yes, you do. All right. Well, let's head over into the round table and wrap up for today.
Wrap everything up. Cool. See you there.
See you in a minute. And welcome back to the round table where we round up everything and sign off. And maybe, ask for a few things from you guys. Maybe.
Yeah, just a couple. Engage the algorithms.
Indeed. So, we've obviously had a good old chat about your Legions Force, your Dark Angels, some side tangents, as always.
Many side tangents.
Some will remain in the video, some probably won't. Yes, and we obviously had a quick look at some things in Tankard Talk of various little projects you've been working on recently.
Yep.
Some that I'm quite invested in. Like certain green skinned ones. And there's some very, very cool stuff there to have a look at. We also had a little update on the missions that me and Els have been practicing. So they're coming along nicely, and we'll hopefully be in a stage where I can actually release a starter document with it all in, which will expand over time. But what I'd like to ask, John, is I'd like to get a couple of little questions out of you just to round up everything that we've spoken about.
A roundup for the round table. Let's go.
Indeed. So, what is one detail you are most excited to develop further?
I am most excited to develop the characters. Now I've got some ideas in terms of where I want to go. I want to have some little characters popping up in it, like representing the kind of different areas, and now that we've got a bit more kind of like a nail down in terms of where they have come from, using that to get a basis in terms of what their interactions are going to be, like what their history is, at least some kind of ideas around that, where have they come from, how they got there, what would that lead to in terms of kind of their fighting style, almost reverse engineering a little bit of going, I like the melee aspects, how can I narratively weave that to, there is a reason why that is the fighting style that they use. They have this melee approach, why is that coming from there, or why are they doing what they're doing, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question would be, depending on who I'm talking to at the time, is how you do expand your current force. But in your case, I think it's probably better to ask, how are you going to start it? What's the foundation of the army going to be?
The foundation of my army is going to be probably first and foremost infantry. Mm-hmm. Infantry is the thing that I probably enjoy making and painting the most. So I think my first protocol is going to be getting a good infantry basis. Mm-hmm. Now that we've established the fact that they're almost at Legion scale, there is a tiny part of me that wants, they're at Legion kind of size. There is a tiny part of me that's like, can I get enough to have a full company in terms of infantry present on the table? But where am I going to be starting with? I think actually probably where I'm going to be starting with most is going to be building command squads, mm-hmm. and then expanding those command squads to have supporting forces. So I want to have representation of all 4 of the main types of infantry, mm-hmm. In like regular armor, and probably have some. I want to have some some Terminator presence, just because I think they look really cool in the white armor. So there is definitely going to be some Terminator presence. I'm just hoping that at some point we get some different Terminators, or like some different means of running Terminators.
Are you particularly hoping for very large, bulky Terminators with a slightly domed appearance?
With plasma guns?
On both arms?
On both arms? I mean, if they just happen to turn up, then yes, those. I want those.
GW, take my money.
Yeah, GW, take my money so I can have my weird little guys from Fifth Element running around the table.
Oh, I'm not going to lie, my Alpha Legion would definitely get reinforcements at that point as well.
I mean, I'm fully looking at the big models as well and being like, those are Centurions. Those can be Centurions.
I would be tempted, but nah. I'd have to paint it.
Just a couple. Just a light sprinkling.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's interesting. Well, hopefully we can report back on that at some point in the future. Maybe some of these things will have come to fruition.
Maybe.
That is a not so subtle jab at John there. Get painting, boy.
Get painting the right thing is actually what you mean.
Yeah, that's true.
I do plenty of painting. I just don't paint the right stuff.
This is also very true. Hopefully one day he'll get on track. Hopefully this video will inspire the track.
Yes.
Hopefully. You'll find out in Tankard Talk in probably a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I've got some time.
You've got some time. You've actually got time. Okay, right. Well, I think that is probably everything in terms of what I need from you, John. So I'd just like to sort of ask the community that watches our videos to please comment down below and tell us what stories are behind your Legions Imperialis armies, or other armies in other game systems that you do have. You know, what homeworlds you've got, combat doctrines, command figures that you're particularly proud of or happy with, whether that's just in models or in text format. And, you know, we may even be able to feature them on a future episode as part of a Tankard Talk. Could be quite fun. But beyond that, what I'd like to say is obviously do go and do all the standard YouTube pleasantries. So please do go and like and subscribe. Share this with your communities and your friends, and hopefully we'll spread by word of mouth a little bit. And you can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch. I have to put this as a notice, obviously, on these videos at the moment. Up until the beginning of next month, as of the time of this release, those platforms are going to be a bit quieter at the moment. The Mead Hall Studio, my home, is being moved. So things are a little bit quieter on that end at the moment, but we will pick up again next month. Okay, so things will pick up again. And hopefully we'll get back on to doing some live streams as well on Twitch.
Yeah, I'll try and pick up some as well.
Well, hopefully we can do some Legions.
Do some shared live streams as well. Actually, now that we've got a better setup as well for live streams.
We do, and I also know how to do multi-camera setups now.
That's the important bit.
So yes, hopefully we can actually do that, and we can actually have some proper dual live streams, and hopefully you'll be able to see us working on armies at the same time.
Yeah,
maybe one day we'll even do the same army.
What madness!
But until then, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching and listening to us ramble. I've been your host, Jay, here at Mead Hall Gaming, and I've been joined by the lovely
John.
Thank you very much once again, and we'll see you next time in the Mead Hall. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.